So today is grammar, and today we are going to be talking about future. So it's an incredibly difficult area of the English grammar, not just for the learner, but also for the teacher. It's notoriously hard for us teachers to communicate this grammar to students. It's very, very, very difficult. Now, how do you feel about talking about the future in English? Like, do you find it difficult, or do you think it's easy? Just give me a I don't know, difficult or easy answer, so I can see where you are. Easy, Ashik is saying. Okay, we'll see. I hope, Ashik, that I'm going to change your mind today. Sometimes it's difficult, Oksana is saying. Anastasia, oh, hi, Anastasia. Anastasia is saying it's easy. Okay, guys, so I'm about to challenge you, perhaps. Okay, I'm about to challenge you because personally, I think future, talking about the future is the most difficult thing in the English language for students, okay? But that's my experience. One of us is going to prove each other wrong. So you prove me wrong, or I prove you wrong, okay? So let's get the ball rolling. Now, so when we talk about, okay, the reason why I ventured, you know, this opinion, this theory that talking about the future is so difficult is because when you think about past tenses or present tenses, it's all clear cut, right? I mean, when you talk about the present, you only have the present continuous and the present simple. That's really straightforward. When you talk about the past, it's also very straightforward. You talk about things from the past, or sometimes you connect the past and the present, you use the present perfect, but that's about it. Now, when you talk about future, okay, you talk about all this, right? So when you really talk about future, there are so many subtleties and nuances and all this that is very, very, very difficult to communicate your message the way you want the message to be put across. So you have to consider all these, and this list, believe me, this is not an exhaustive list, okay? It's just a couple of things, right? So when you talk about future, you have to consider all these elements. So you have to think of not only what you want to say, but also you have to think of the behind the curtain elements, like your intentions, the context, the scenario. That's why very often, most of the time, we don't even talk about future tenses. I know grammar books refer to future tenses, but we teachers don't like to use this expression. There is no such concept as a future tense. We only talk about future forms. And we talk about future forms because there are so many of them, and there are so many ways of actually talking about the future. So today, we are going to be discussing only some of these elements, okay? I've decided to just pick, I think, about 2 or 3, and then we'll focus on two really advanced tenses. Hi, Preshta, good to have you with us. Really advanced future forms, and we shall also discuss the modal verb will, because will is a big problem for students, okay? And I'll show you in a minute why. So let's start with a little experiment. So what I'm going to ask you to do now is very quickly look at the 6 sentences here and tell me if you think they are all correct, and if you think they communicate the same message. So I'm going to give you 45 seconds and tell me if you think all these sentences communicate the same message. So I'm speaking with him, and do you think they are all correct? Can you identify an incorrect sentence? So Ashik is saying number 1 is not correct, yeah? Oksana is saying number 5 is not correct. Anastasia is also, Anastasia is with Ashik. So number 1 and number 5 seem not to be to your taste, let me put it like that. You think they are wrong. Okay, so the answer to this is all of them are correct. Okay, so every single one of them is correct, but they have to be set in, or they have to come. I'm speaking plant, Natalia. I will spontaneous. Kind of. We'll talk about this in a minute, Natalia. Yeah. I mean, yes and no. So again, what I'm saying, all of them are correct, but they are decontextualized here. So there's no context. And without a context, they may look ungrammatical to you, but they are all fine. Now, but my question to you is, because this is very interesting, if you look at these sentences, do they communicate the same message or different messages? Is it the same message or different messages? The same message. Christina is saying different. Hello, Christina. Okay, so Christina, I agree with you to a certain extent, and I agree. Oksana is saying different. So if you look at it this way, if you look at the 6 sentences, in a sense, they communicate the same message. The message being speaking and him later today. So every single one of them is communicating the same message. And this is the problem with future tenses, because different future forms overlap. So what is important here is how it's the subtlety and the context and how you feel about the message and where you're coming from communicating the message. And that's why future forms are so difficult. So to show you another example, okay, very quickly, it's the same story. Every single sentence here is correct. Every single one of them communicates the same message, really, yet they are all different. And there is a reason why we have all these future forms. So without further ado, okay, let us look at another slide. And I'm going to give you 2 minutes, well, 3 minutes, okay? And it's a challenge for you again. I'll show you 14 sentences. We are not going to go through all of them, okay, because we have no time, but I want you in 3 minutes, use your instinct, okay, like your first instinct, and identify the only 3 correct sentences of all the 14 sentences. There are only 3 that are really correct, and I want you to identify them. Okay, so I'm giving you 2 to 3 minutes. Use your instinct immediately. Once you spot a correct sentence, write it in the chat. So Anastasia, number 1 is not correct. Number 2 is not correct. Keep going. Come on, guys, give me some input, okay? Use your instinct. Maddie is saying number 6 is correct. Number 6, Maddie, sorry to disappoint you, is not correct. Come on, keep going. Give me 3 correct answers. Natalia is saying 7. 7 is most certainly, Natalia, not correct. Oksana saying 7, no. Natalia saying 8. Oh, 8, okay, not quite. There is a better way of putting it for number 8. Number 12, definitely not number 12, Maddie. Number 4 is correct. No, number 4 is not correct, Anastasia. So give me 3 correct answers here. Number 4 is not correct. Number 11, number 11 is correct. So Maddie, point for you. Someone said, oh no, Oksana said number 11. Number 11 is correct. Number 10 is most certainly not correct. Number 13, not correct. So, okay, 89 and 14 are correct. 8, 9 and 14. 8, 8, Christina, not necessarily. I can understand where you're coming from. Okay, this is the problem with future forms, but there is a better option for number 8, and hopefully we can correct all these later. And then you said number 9. Number 9 is not correct, Christina. And number 14, yes. So we have number 14, that's correct. Someone said number 11, that's correct. And there is one more, and it's not number 4, and I'm not telling you now. So the reason why I showed you this is because I wanted to prove you wrong. And I wanted to show you that future forms are most certainly not easy. They are notoriously difficult, very difficult, and it's very hard to use them. So even if you read grammar books and you read the descriptions, you know, the explanations and whatnot, it's not exactly very helpful because very often they overlap, and at some point you just have to use your feel for it. Okay, so guys, let me show you again before I start telling you about future forms. Let's do one more experiment. I just want to demonstrate something. Okay, so this is John. Okay, now John, and this is Alex. So John and Alex. Now John really fancies Alex, and as you can see, they are on the phone now. So Alex is coming to town, and John is really looking forward to her, you know, visiting him. So the whole conversation ends on this note. Okay, I'll see you tonight. That's what John says. Now, a couple of hours later, 2 hours later, okay, John meets Peter, and they have a short, you know, friendly chat over a pint. And this is how the chat goes. So she called me already, and I'll see her tonight. I'm really excited. Cool. What's the plan then? Well, we'll have dinner somewhere nice, probably outdoors. I mean, look at the sky. It'll be a beautiful evening. I can see you're excited. Well, just imagine I'll have dinner with her in a couple of hours. Sure. And what will you do after dinner? Well, we'll finish dinner by 10 p.m., I reckon. I haven't really thought about what we will do after dinner. Perhaps we'll go for a walk along the Thames. Just an idea. I'll decide later, see how the evening plays out. Will she stay at yours? Oh no, she'll stay at her sister's. Anyway, my train will leave in 30 minutes, so I have to be leaving now. Oh no, John, I'm afraid trains will strike this evening. Sugar, I'll take a taxi then. Now, do you understand the story? I'm sure you do, yeah. Now, what's the problem with this story? What's the problem with the language here? Future. And what about the future, Oksana? The plan, probability, yes, okay. But can you all not see, what I want you to see is that throughout, only one future form has been used. And that future form is will. And the reason why I'm showing you this is because this is exactly how students communicate. So students assume that there is only one future tense and, you know, future simple. And they always use will. Okay, so whenever they communicate something about the future, they always go for the most obvious, the most immediate form, and it's will. And as you can see, I mean, it's not how it should be, okay? There should be hundreds of other different forms, and hopefully at the end of this session, we can correct it a little bit. Now, so let's look at our first slide. Now, the way I've divided this session today is we are just going to look at predictions and plans, and then we are going to look at two really hard tenses, one in particular, and we are going to look at the modal verb, will. So let's look at predictions. It'll start easy, as always, but progressively, it'll be more difficult. So a simple situation and a simple scenario. Look at the sky. Which is the answer here? Just give me A or B. Anastasia is saying B. Anybody for A? Anybody for A? No, because you all know it's B. Why is it B? Because you can see the evidence. So that's something that you learn from books, right? Now, oh dear, 2 weeks left and still so much to do, okay? Oh, sorry. Now, I want Ashik to tell me how I feel. Look at this image, and this is how I feel at the moment. So much to do. How am I feeling now, Ashik? I'm completely snowed under. Anastasia, that's it. So 2 weeks left, and I still have so much to do. I'm completely snowed under. So what do you think I'm going to be saying? I'll have problems finishing it on time, or I'm going to have A or B, A or B. Use your instinct again. Maddie is saying A. Fresh Day is saying B. Give me more answers. B, B, A. Oh, different answers. Okay. Very good. Now, we'll come back to this in a second. One last scenario, okay? This little girl comes from a family of lawyers. Her father is a lawyer, her mother is a lawyer, her sister is a lawyer. So which do you think is the correct prediction here? She's going to be a lawyer when she grows up, or she'll be a lawyer when she grows up? Which would you use? Remember, this is her background. That's where she comes from. Everybody's saying B, she'll be a lawyer when she grows. Ashik is saying she's going to be a lawyer when she grows up. So let's start with, so for the last image, okay, both answers are absolutely possible. And again, we have the same problem with overlapping forms, right? You can use both. Both are correct. Now, the difference here is that in the first two, okay, you have some kind of an evidence, and that's this is strong evidence. You look at the sky, you immediately think of a sunny day. So the answer, ideally, the answer here is B. For the second one, it really should be the same. So I'm going to have problems finishing it because you can't see the evidence. This is hard evidence. Now, when you look at C, you could be thinking of evidence, right? You could say she's going to be a lawyer because she comes from this background, okay? But at the same time, you could just be making an assumption. So this is your personal prediction. It's not based on any evidence. So the problem here is that we have predictions based on evidence, and we have personal predictions, very often used with I think and I reckon. And I'm sure you already know that it should be the other way around. And what happens now is if you look at these sentences, okay, you can see that most of the time, okay, both are possible, okay, but the first one, the second one, I'd actually say I'm going to have problems and it's going to be a sunny day tomorrow because you have this evidence. The last one could really be either, because you could just be making a personal prediction. So the way we use will with predictions is when you actually, you don't base it on hard evidence. This is your personal opinion in a sense. And we are not talking about facts, because will can also be used to describe facts, but we are not talking about facts. We are talking about predictions. Now, let's look at this situation. Within the next 10 years, okay, which one is correct? Which one do you prefer? B, A, so different answers. Good. There were supposed to be different answers. Now, what's the difference between them? If you apply this logic that you use will to express personal opinions, personal predictions, but you use going to because you have some hard evidence. So what you're saying is probably, okay, I have a question. I use it if or when. I mean, when I say when or if it happens, I'll let you know. Is it okay? Yeah, that's it. This is a future clause. This is a beautiful sentence, Fresh Start. Yeah, perfect. So if you think of the B answer, okay, it makes me think, if you say that there are going to be flying cars, it makes me think that you base your prediction on the literature that you've read. Maybe you've just come back from a seminar or something. So you have some evidence, whereas the first one is just your opinion, probably based on some research as well, but it's more about that's what I think. So in a sense, both are correct. You can't dismiss any of them as wrong. They are both correct. But look at this and tell me which is correct. So look at his shoelaces. He's going to or he will trip over. Maddie is saying A. Christina, yeah. So now, Ashik, so you can see very, very, very clearly that this answer is not possible here. You can just rule it out. Why? Because that's hard evidence. This is not what you think is going to happen. It's obvious, it's common sense, it's going to happen, right? So, so you see, this is the common thing with will and going to, that very often there's no difference as such, unless you really want to the subtlety to come out, like, oh, that's my personal opinion and that's not. So often it's completely irrelevant, but there are situations, many situations, when there is a huge difference between them, and that's why you have to be careful. And this is one of the reasons why future forms are difficult, but not only. Okay, so let us move on, because I have something much more difficult for you in a minute. Okay, so we have will and going to here. Now let's look at this situation. So just imagine you are throwing a party. Okay, so you're throwing a party, you've invited a couple of people, and you know that these people are always very punctual, very punctual. They never come late. And you also know that it's only about 10 minutes left, and this is the time that you communicated that the guests should arrive at. So what are you going to say? How are you going to make the prediction about the coming guests? Remember, they know the time, you know they are very punctual, it's only 10 minutes left. So what can you say to someone who wants you to do something in the garden? You can't leave the house, why? You have to make a prediction. So say, I want you to come with me to the garden to help me with something, but you know you can't leave your house because it's 10 minutes left. The guests, okay, I'll show you in a second. They will be here soon, Christina is saying. Yeah, that's it. You could say that. They are coming, Anastasia is saying. It's a possibility, absolutely. My guests are arriving in 10 minutes. Beautiful, Natalia. I have an appointment. You could also say that. Now, how about this? Guests will be arriving any minute now. So instead of saying guests will be here in a second, which is Christina, which is a very good answer. They will be here in a second. They are coming, absolutely fine, but they will be arriving any minute now. Have you ever used the future continuous this way? We are going to talk a lot about the future continuous because I feel that this is one of the tenses that's really, really not used by students at all. And instead, it's the will form that's used. So look at the second situation. You are flying into Barcelona now, and you know that the time, the scheduled time to land is in 10 minutes. So what are you saying, okay, to your partner sitting next to you? Will be landing in Barcelona in 10 minutes. So what are you saying here exactly is that you're making a prediction, but you are making a prediction about something that's expected to happen at the moment of speaking. So you are talking about something that's about to happen, not in the distant future, but near in time, and it's expected to happen. So you know that your guests are always on time. You expect them to come any minute now. So that's why you are saying they will be arriving any minute now. Same goes for the plane, okay? You don't expect any disasters. So what is expected is we'll be landing in Barcelona in 10 minutes. Now, so in a sense, you are making assumptions, you are making your predictions based on strong assumptions, okay? Because this is what always happens, and that's what you expect. Now, let's look at this situation. Okay, so we have two situations again, very quickly. One is, I'm sitting in one of the cars and I'm stuck in traffic. So, and there is a meeting, okay, a very important meeting. So I call you to let everybody know that I'm stuck in the traffic. So what are you going to say to all the people waiting for me? Because I have to be in the meeting, I actually am a very important person. Okay, so you are saying Gabi will be late. Gabi will be late. That's what you are saying, Freshta. Yeah, there is a better way of communicating this. We'll wait for you, Anastasia is saying. Very good. But what you are saying is you are just deciding on a future action. So this is why you use will, because it's a spontaneous decision. But how are you going to communicate to them my lateness? How are you going to say, because I want you to communicate my lateness. So Freshta said, Gabi will be late. Fine, okay, you could do that. But how about she'll be coming late? How about using the future continuous? So what you are saying again is, I'm in traffic, okay, I'm stuck in a really, really bad traffic. So you are making an assumption, okay? You don't know it for certain. Do you know for certain that I'll be coming late? You don't. There's no knowing, okay? You can't know this, but you expect this to happen. Because you expect this to happen, you use the future continuous. So Gabi will be coming late. She'll be arriving a little bit later than expected. So we can wait for her. Now, imagine I invite you to our next speaking club session, okay? And I know what to be expected. I know that it's a lot of fun. So all I can say to you is you'll be enjoying it. Come along, okay? That's to be expected. So I'm making an assumption. So it's really a prediction, but not quite a prediction, isn't it? But anyway, future continuous is a lovely tense used a lot in English, but to be honest, I've never heard a single student use it again. So it's one of those forms, because I just called it a tense because it's called a tense in grammar books. But anyway, it's one of those forms that students hardly ever use, if ever, okay? So, and the very last situation, I don't know how much you know about cats, but I have a cat. Many of you probably have a cat as well. So what do we know about cats? We know that it's very easy for them to climb up a tree, but we also know that once they climb up a tree, it's often very difficult for them to come down, to actually climb down the tree. So you can see this cat going up the tree. Now, what prediction can you make? What assumption can you make, knowing that it's hard for cats to then climb down? I'll help you. Okay, so the cat will be needing help to climb down the tree. It'll soon be needing help to climb down the tree. So what I'm saying is this is the immediate future, and that's what's expected. And the nice thing about the future continuous is that, Anastasia, okay, this message is for you. State verbs can be continuous verbs, okay? I mean, the future continuous doesn't see any problem here. Need, want, this all could be extended, okay? So it'll be needing help to climb down the tree, and it's absolutely fine to say that. Now, those who come to our sessions regularly are Peter. And you, of course, know that I was not a big fan of Amy, and you know how the relationship ended. So what do you think I said to Peter at the start of the relationship? Because obviously I used my assumptions, okay? I assumed based on Amy's behavior, I thought she was leading him on. So I assumed that this was not going to end well. And I said to Peter, you'll be crying out for help soon. You'll be regretting this soon. Instead of the obvious, you'll regret it, that sounds like a threat, or you'll cry out for help, that sounds like a fact, okay? So based on this, you now hopefully know that to make predictions, you don't always have to use will or be going to. You can also use the future continuous. And the future continuous is used to make predictions based on your assumptions, okay? And it's also to talk about your immediate future. There is more to the future continuous than that, but this is going to come in a minute. So let's move on. And now, this is for those who really want to be challenged. Now, I want to show you something very, something that you may have not noticed before. Maybe you have, maybe you haven't, but maybe you've never reflected on that. So when we talk about predictions, we talk about future, right? Now, I'd like you to look at this. Imagine a situation, okay, again. A friend of yours wants to talk to Anne, okay? So, but this friend doesn't know if Anne is available for a chat now. Now, you know this about Anne. You know that Anne, at this time of day, Anne is normally at work. So you know that Anne is at work at this time of day. You also know that this is the time of day when she typically is not at home. So when your friend asks you, do you think I can call her? Do you think, what do you think she may be doing? Do you think I can call her? What do you say to your friend? You probably say, no, I don't think it's a good idea. She's at work. She's not at home. But then when you think about it, how do you know she's at work? And how do you know she's not at home? I mean, this is her habit. That's what normally happens. But it's a very definitive statement, right? When in fact you don't. That's it, Christine. I love modal verbs. I was hoping someone would actually give me this answer. So we have modal verbs to communicate this. You could add probably. You could say she's probably at work, right? But there's another way. What you could say is you could use will. And you can use will that you normally use to talk about future. And what happens here is you use will to talk about present. So what you're saying is she'll be at work now. So will and now. She won't be at home at the moment. So what we are doing here is we are using will to make assumptions about the present, not the future, but the present. And it's very, very common in English. So this is one of the reasons why you've got to be careful with using will. Because using and abusing it, the same in Italian, you see? So, so when you make assumptions, okay, not definitive statements, then you use this. Now, look at that. Your friend wants to go shopping. Now, it's a bank holiday today. So I mean, obviously, what you want to say is not a good idea. Shops are closed today. It's a bank holiday. But then again, how do you know they are closed? Maybe some of them are open. So what you say is shops will be closed today. So you are talking about present, but you use will because it's an assumption, okay? And so you are making assumptions about a present situation. Now, how about this? I've got to rush really because I have so much to show you. They've just got home having been traveling for weeks, right? So your parents now, they arrived, they got home early in the morning. So you were still sleeping. You haven't seen them yet, but you can make assumptions, right? So you say, I better cook something for them. You could say they are tired, but then how do you know? You don't know. So the way to say this is they'll be very tired and hungry now, right? Or they'll be sleeping at the moment. So you are talking about present, you use will because you are making an assumption as opposed to like definite statements, right? And the last one, but last but not least, okay, let's look at this. You are a busybody. You know, a busybody is someone who always wants to know everything about everybody, okay? It's a classic image of a busybody. Now, you can see your neighbor, that lady, talking to someone, right? But you can't quite make out who the man is. Even though you have your binoculars, even though, you know, you really struggle, you can't make out who the man is. So what can you say? And then someone behind you goes, oh, maybe it's her ex-husband, but you know it's not the ex-husband, okay? So what you say is, nah, she won't be talking to him. So again, making an assumption because you know that she refuses to talk to him, so it's got to be someone else. So using will for making assumptions, not really predictions, but assumptions about a present situation. So I have no idea if you've ever seen this, if you've come across this in English, but that's possible. Now let's move on and let's talk about plans. So, okay, first thing first, okay, tube strike in London, okay, it happens all the time now. It's almost a, you know, daily bread. You want to find out about me going to work. So you ask me, how are you going to get to work tomorrow? How are you getting to work tomorrow? How will you be getting to work tomorrow? How will you get to work tomorrow? Now, are these forms correct? Is any of them something that you just wouldn't say because you think it's not correct? I'll answer for you. No, all of them are correct, okay? So we have will, going to, present continuous, future continuous. All of them are absolutely fine. So I can say, oh, I'm going to get a taxi, or I'm getting a taxi, or I will be getting a taxi tomorrow, or I'll get a taxi. All of them are absolutely fine. So same problem, okay? The overlap, because all of them are fine. but each one communicates a slightly different message, slightly different information. But there are instances when when you talk about plans, are completely, they are kind of clear cut. So imagine a situation. You and your friend just looking at a menu online because you want to go out and eat out. So you are selecting something that you would like to order in the restaurant, and you say, oh, I'm going to have a burger, right? So, and then you get to the restaurant and obviously no burger. So what do you say? I'll have pasta then. So what happens here is you are talking about plans, right? But using two different forms. And the first one, okay, this is actually making decisions, right? So you are making a decision here, but because it's already made, it becomes a plan, as opposed to this. But that's something you already know, so I don't want to be preaching too much about it. You know that sometimes that will is used for plans that are not really plans, right? You didn't think it through. You didn't have the time to think it through. You've just decided, because sometimes that's what we have to do in life. So I'd like you to look at this, okay? And I would like you to tell me if these sentences are correct. We are talking about plans, and I can tell you that not all of them are correct. So the first one is, I'm going to buy a house next year, right? Is this correct to you? Do you feel it's correct? Understand? Yeah, everybody's saying yes. It's a beautiful sentence. It's a beautiful plan that you have. You've slept on it, right? You've mulled over it for many days, hours, months. It's a plan. How about the second one? I'll buy a house next year. Anastasia saying correct. Christina, everybody's saying correct. Yeah. Yeah, okay. And this is where I have a little issue, because it is correct. Don't get me wrong. Okay, it's absolutely, I'm not saying that this is wrong, but it gives me this idea of deciding on a whim. Okay, and a whim is just a sudden desire. Like if you said to me, like we are having a conversation and you say, oh, I'll buy a house next year. That to me sounds like a decision that you've just made, which obviously when it comes to buying a house, that's not exactly how we decide, I think. So now this is different to the next sentence. I will buy a house next year. How is it different? So the first one is, I'll buy a house next year. The second one, I will buy a house next year. Can you see the difference? Number three, where you emphasize will, changes the meaning completely, in a sense. Number three sounds like a huge promise. You are adamant about it. You are promising it to yourself. You are that's it. You are planning it, and you are really adamant about delivering. Okay, so it changes the meaning. So with will, it's extremely important how you say it as well, how you use it. But I'll buy a house next year is fine, okay? But again, you have to me, okay, if you say to me, I'm going to buy a house, it sounds like it's a plan. I'll buy a house. You really need to think of the right context for this sentence. How about the last two? Do you like them? I'm buying a house next year and I'll be buying a house next year. Yes or no? Yes. Okay, now, before we answer this, I'd like you to look at that. So present continuous, future continuous. And now you know this, most of this, you know. So I'm visiting my friend tomorrow, right? I'm buying a house next week. I'm flying to Barcelona on Monday. So what we have is the present continuous for future plans, or better still, arrangements, right? You know that. I'm not going to be teaching you this. I just want to kind of highlight, emphasize the fact that when you use the present continuous, okay, because it's an arrangement, okay, it's the case of two parts involved. Do we ever make arrangements with ourselves? No. So when you use the present continuous, the assumption is there is another part to it. So you and your friend will be waiting, you an estate agent, and you and the airline. And the assumption is that's, okay, I'm not going to tell you, you are going to tell me. Look at this sentence. She's selling her house and moving to Spain. Okay, now, when is she selling her house and moving to Spain? In a distant future or soon? Soon. How do you know it's soon, Christina and Natalia? Because you see, with present continuous here, you have present continuous, yeah. So very often you need the time reference, but oftentimes, okay, the time reference is implied. So what you know from the present continuous is that there is another part involved because it's an arrangement. So it's not just her wishful thinking. And if there is another part, you know that the process has already started. That's what I'm trying to say. So if it has already started, I mean, if you say she's selling her house and moving to Spain, you know that all the paperwork is already in place. So it's just a matter of, I don't know, signing some more paperwork, etc., etc., etc. But you know that it's not going to be a distant future, but it's going to be quite soon. So now look at these two sentences. I'm buying a house next year. I'll be buying a house next year. Are you happy about this? I'm buying a house next year. Now that now you know that if you, it's quite, it would be very odd, right, to be starting the buying process now and only buy it next year. It just doesn't make sense. Logically, it doesn't make sense. So now another way of saying the same here is to use the present continuous. Sorry, let's put it here. So if you say, I'm visiting my friend tomorrow, and I'll be visiting my friend tomorrow, you are saying exactly the same thing. So now that you know it, try and vary your language. So when you want to talk about arrangements, you don't have to be using the present continuous, because the future continuous has exactly the same function. So you're talking about arrangements. So I'll be buying a house next week. I'll be flying to Barcelona on Monday, or I'll be flying to Barcelona on Monday. This is so common. We use it so often that, I don't know, pay more attention now when you watch movies, when you listen to people, pay more attention to how the future continuous is used. Now, so we know that these two are not exactly correct. Now, let's look at the future continuous in a little bit more detail. So what we know already is the basic grammar that you are taught at school. So you know that we use the present continuous to talk about a longer action in the future. So this time next week, I'll be lying on the beach. This time tomorrow, it's a bank holiday, I'll be sitting on my sofa, lying on my sofa, watching Netflix. So this is something you know. You also know that it's similar to the present continuous. So we are talking about arrangements. So the next speaking club will be taking place tomorrow, as opposed to is taking place tomorrow. It's exactly the same. And the last one that we discussed, something is expected to happen at the moment of speaking. So guests will be arriving any minute now. So we have 3 uses of the future continuous for now. How about this? So how will you be getting to work tomorrow? Will you be coming to the Christmas party? How long will you be staying? Will you be wanting lunch tomorrow? Now, those who came to the understatement masterclass should already recognize what is happening here. So we use the present, the future continuous to politely ask something of people where we essentially are saying there's no pressure. So you could say to me, will you come to my party? Are you coming to my party? But that could sound like you are pressurizing someone. But if you say, will you be coming? There's no pressure. How long will you be staying? Like, I don't want you out of my house, okay? So it's not like, I'm not asking because I want you out, okay? I'm just asking how long you'll be staying. And will you be wanting lunch tomorrow, Anastasia? You see, again, want is a state verb, but we absolutely use it in the ing form as well. So another function for the future continuous is when you ask someone about something in a very nice, polite way, saying no pressure. And let us look at this situation. Surely you've all experienced that. Excursions, you know, tour guides, so on, so on. The guide will tell you, look, it's a fact, so I'm using will. So when you go on an excursion, the guide will tell you, it's a fact, everything about the day, right? Like a plan. So the guide is going to tell you everything what's going to happen. So today we'll be visiting Central London and Hampton Court. We'll be taking you to, the coach will be stopping at 1, 2, 3 places. We'll be having dinner in, and after that, we'll be heading back to London or wherever we come from, okay? So also, you must have been on a flight where the pilot normally says, we'll be flying at the height, we'll be flying at the speed, cabin crew will soon be doing this and that. Why do you think this language is used here? Because we're talking about events that happen in the normal course of things. And to give you another example, okay, look at this woman, okay, from work, and the driver is saying, hop in, I can give you a lift. I'll be going that way anyway. So what you're saying is, this is a normal course of things. This will happen anyway, okay? So hop in, I'll be going your way anyway. How about this one, okay? 2 people at work, okay? And I'm saying to my colleague, let me have the files. We see Peter later today, so I can give them to him. So don't worry, okay? I'll be there anyway, so I'll be seeing him. And the last one, milk, okay? So you could say, I'll be going to shops later, so I can get you some milk. So look what happens here, okay? We have another function. We often use the future continuous this way. It essentially is saying, this will be the case anyway, okay? This is going to happen. So because it's happening already, okay, I'll do that, this and this. So that's future continuous. Now, those who are still with me, it's almost 4 o'clock and I overplanned for today again, future forms, and I really tried to limit the material. Those who are still with me and haven't fallen asleep, can you tell me if you've ever used the future continuous in any of the functions that we've just discussed? Have you ever used the future continuous in any of the ways other than the first example that you learn at school, so longer actions in the future? Have you ever used it for arrangements? Have you ever used it to say, not yet, Natalia is saying, yeah, I love the answer. to say, you know, I'll be seeing him anyway. Yeah, I'll be going this way anyway. So you can, I can do it for you. Um, it's a very, very common usage in English, okay, as opposed to will, okay. And one last thing about, I don't think we are going to finish this masterclass. There is still a lot I want to show you, but there's no way we can finish. So let me just show you one more thing. This is another typical use of the future continuous. So I'm going away next week, but I'll be checking my emails every day. And next week, I'll be drinking a lot of caipirinha because I'll be in Brazil. So what you are saying here is that you're referring to something that you'll be doing not once, but repeatedly, but it's only temporary. So that's my phone. It's broken. So I'll be using my husband's phone for a couple of days. Not I'll use, not I'm using, but I'll be using his phone for a couple of days. And that's my friend. She never goes out, okay, but her friends are visiting. So she'll be going out a lot next week. So not one action, repeated action, but it's only temporary.